Hey, good morning. Granny Gear here for Old Guy and a Bike. You know, some time ago, I put out a video that talked about the new crop of fast all-rounders, road bikes that look like a racing bike and have some of that DNA, and yet, well, they're just a little bit more approachable to guys and gals like me. And it worked out where I ended up getting one. Got one to ride for a while. But the thing is, sometimes, you know, when you get what you asked for, it isn't quite what you expected. How did that work out? Well, let's talk about that after the break. Roll intro. Now you notice, conspicuously absent behind me, well, there's no bike. That's because the Basso SV, a bike that I have ridden now for, over 500 miles, very much enjoyed, well, it's gone back to, well, let's just say my Italian girlfriend went back to her mother. And you know what? That happens in relationships. Sometimes one person's more willing than the other, and she's thought, well, we need some time apart. I think she said we need a long time apart. It's all good. And I want to talk about that because mostly I want to talk about my experience with it and whether or not it validated my idea of saying, hey, fat old guys still would like to have fast bikes. We just don't want to bleed in order to ride them. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to talk about how that worked out because it was really all I expected it to be. And then I'll split up a little bit. We'll talk about riding the Basso. I want to wrap that up and talk about the bike itself, where I thought it excelled, and if there's anything I thought could be a little bit different or a little improved, we'll talk about that too. Okay, let's get to it. We got a lot to discuss. Now, I referenced that video, and I'll put a link in the description, but you can go back and look at it. Basically, the concept in a nutshell was that, hey, just because you're an older rider doesn't mean you don't want to ride a fast bike. You want a performance-oriented bike. You want to have that rewarding, giddy up when you push on the pedals. And I'm talking road bikes here, but they could be a gravel bike or a mountain bike, I suppose. But let's stick to road for now, okay? And there was a new crop of what I called all-rounders, bikes in my mind, things like an NV Melee or the Tarmac SL8, maybe the Cervelo Soloist, and there's more and more and more every day. And the Basso SV fit really, really well in that category of a race pedigreed bike as far as some of the geometry and the performance, the weight, the response, the handling and all that. And yet, the edges were softened. I said they took the hard edges of a race bike and they sanded them less edgy, if you will. So you get a bike that's still pretty comfortable to ride over long distances. Maybe the reach and stack is not completely ridiculous unless you're a 21-year-old crit racer, right? Just made it to where someone like myself, who's still a performance-oriented rider, would enjoy riding it, and yet it wouldn't be too painful. Okay, you can go back and watch the video if that was the premise. But here's the thing, sometimes you get what you asked for, and when you get it, it's not what you expected. And so I want to talk about that in the first half of the video. In other words, well, I got it, but did I like it? Well, in a word, actually 2 words. Oh yeah. Yes, I did. It was the experience I expected to have, and I loved the experience. Let me tell you, that Basso was a PR machine. Okay, now for you, a lot of you out there, you could care less about the Strava PR, okay? And it's not that important to me, but it kind of is because it shows, frankly, that, okay, my engine didn't just get better just because I got a fast bike, okay? Just because I was riding the Basso, it's not like I just, all of a sudden, my FTP increased by factor of 5 or something, right? It wasn't that, but everywhere I rode that bike, let's put it this way. I personally, in my time, and my time is not, I don't have a lot of experience on fast road bikes, but I have never ridden a bike that gave me so much back out of each pedal stroke I put into the bike as the Basso SV. I was just faster pretty much everywhere on it. Uphill, PRs. I was just setting PRs, I said Strava PRs on that thing all over the place. I would push on the pedals, it would go. I could close the gaps easier if the Peloton gapped me a little bit or I wanted to catch the next group. it just flew up the road. And yet, it was as comfortable as I expect a bike with that kind of performance to be, and probably even more comfortable. Now, some of that came from 32 millimeter tires at 55 pounds, obviously, but the rest of the bike had that nice compliancy to it. It just wasn't harsh in any way at all. So basically that all-rounder that I expected, that experience of having something that was agile and responsive and had that racing kind of zoo feel to it, and yet didn't beat the heck out of me or scare me when I was riding it. Yeah, that was exactly what I got, and I liked it very, very much. I'm kind of spoiled. And I think that speaks to the genre. Now, I don't know, I haven't ridden every bike out there in its class, although there's a couple more coming up in the next video and the video after that I have ridden since then. We'll talk about that later. But if this genre proves out, well, for riders like me who still like to keep a pace occasionally, and you care about being efficient with your watts, because I've got less watts every day, being efficient with that, and a bike like the SV feels like that really gave that to me. If that's your place in the riding experience, go ride one of these bikes that are like this. Maybe go ride the Basso if you can get one. I think you'll like it, because I sure did. All right, let's talk about the Basso itself, what I liked about it after riding it for almost 600 miles, and then if something I thought maybe could be improved, we'll talk about that too. First of all, what did I like about it? Well, it fit me very, very well. I was riding was it 57 or 58? I can't remember. I've been looking at so many bikes lately. I'm used to t-shirt sizing and centimeter sizing, but 6'2" with long arms, that bike fit me really, really well. I had it set up with 110 stem and a 42 centimeter bar, although it's a weird thing. One thing I noticed with the Basso, and this goes to the negative a little bit really, is the way they spec the bars. They say center to center when you measure, like, you know, usually there's two ways to measure a handlebar width. Center to center, okay, going out to the hood, you go right in the center with a tape measure, and that's, say, 42, right? Or you go outside to outside, and then you would measure from the outside of the part that goes to the hoods, and then you can measure the drops with flare and et cetera, and on and on. Well, I ordered a 42 centimeter bar with a 110 stem, because I'm thinking that's going to get me about right. I didn't quite get it right. I really needed a 120 stem on that because I was slightly cramped. But since it wasn't my bike to keep long term, it was good enough. But long term, I would have needed a different stem handlebar. Now, here's what Basso does do, and I'll mention this to their credit. If you buy a bike and they're expensive, and those one-piece handlebars, which the Levita bar is what I had, really comfortable bar. Loved it. Nice give to it, but stiff enough for me, and the hand positions and the shape, very, very nice. If you get that bar stem and it isn't right for you, they will swap that out. Now, they won't pay labor, so you'd have to have you do it or the bike shop do it. But within a reasonable amount of time, okay, you're going to know fairly soon whether the bar's not right or not, or the stem length. They will swap that out. So that's their credit. Now, here's the problem with it, though. They call out center to center, and yet that's not correct, at least by my tape measure. So I ended up basically with a 40 centimeter effective width, even though they say it's a 42. Well, you know what? That's kind of serendipitous, because even though if I'd wanted a 42, I didn't get it, I ended up riding a 40, well, and I liked it. I think going forward, I do a fast road bike again like that, I would go with the 40 centimeter bar. Pedaling it was just a fabulous experience. I already said it had that lovely response. It just felt eager and active and snappy, and climbing on it. I mean, I would be climbing, honestly, guys, most time I'm like a gear higher or a gear down the cassette on any climb compared to like my Time 80HX. It was that much of a difference. No complaints. Descending on it was exhilarating. One of the negatives I would say would be that it was a little more active than I'm used to on descents, especially in the wind. Not if the road, only if it was windy. If it wasn't windy, it was just lovely. In the wind, it would sometimes make me clench up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know exactly if that's typical of a faster geometry bike like that with a 73.5 degree head tube angle, you know, and everything kind of zoomy in that narrow bar, and those deepish wheels, those fulcrum sharks. They were almost 50 at the top of the wave and 45-ish in the bottom of the wave. They got that wavy look. Supposedly that's a neutral wheel in the wind. The bike felt a little active in that situation, but maybe that's just part of the deal. I don't know. I didn't try other wheels, but that was the most negative thing I had against that bike was in the wind downhill. If you spent a lot of time in the wind downhill, I think I would like the bike, but I think I would run a shallower wheel. Just saying. One other negative thing I noticed with it, and it's the last negative thing I have to say, is that I had a little bit of toe overlap with it. Not a lot. It wasn't egregious, but I had some. And if I had something, it was so close. If I had like toe warmers on or booties, you know, for the winter, I would notice if I'd stopped, you know, I have my crank, you know, 90 degrees, I would touch my toe, which is really unusual in a size 58. That typically doesn't happen. And I think that's a result of a couple things in the geometry. It's got a short reach, so the top tube is a little bit shorter than it might be by, say, 5 to 10 millimeters over a racier bike. And I don't know what the fork offset is on it, but when you have a 73.5 degree head tube angle, which is pretty aggressive, right? And then you bring the top tube back, well, what happens, right? You're pulling your front axle towards you. Your front wheel's getting closer to you. So the result is I had a little toe overlap, never bothered me, but I would notice it at the brake stops, you know, the potty stops and the cafe stops. We're all just sitting around and I would just all of a sudden touch my toe with the wheel and go, huh, what's up with that? Anyway, so that was the only other negative. Other than that, the Basso was just a great bike to ride. I'm going to miss it. However, that said, as I said, it spoiled me. It has me on a bit of a mission, and that will be a future video because, like I said, riding that bike was a spoiler. I really got used to the performance, and if I can find another bike that has that type of comfort to it and gives me that type of performance, well, Granny Gear just might be writing a check. All right, that's it. That's my experience, my feedback from wanting a faster bike that wasn't too harsh on me to ride. Was I right? I think I was. I loved it. I loved the experience. I want to do it again. And the Basso SV, even though I'm going to miss her, well, I wish her well because our time together, it was sweet. Thanks to Basso for providing that bike to me to ride for the time I had it. They were wonderful to work with. It was a lovely bike. And I encourage you guys, if you're looking for something high-end and unique and special, because, you know, made in Italy, it's got that Italian panache to it. For a lot of people, that counts a lot. Now, stick around to the end of the video because, well, you saw the pictures I opened up the video with, right? You saw those images of that lovely Italian red car that the Basso was sitting on? Well, for more of that, stick around. All right, that's it for now. You guys have a great week and or weekend, and as always, go ride your bikes. Because you know, we just have to go for a drive.